Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Chai Together. I am your host and founder, Pratibha Day. You are tuning in for your cup of courage, hope, and imagination today. Today, I have with me a very special friend, Mr. Corey D. Jones. If you don't know about Corey, you need to get with him because he is amazing and he's wearing an amazing shirt. Corey, what does it say?
Says do the right thing. Always do the
Yeah,
right thing.
that's some ethical communication for you.
Absolutely.
So, a little bit about Corey. Corey is known as CJ, the empowerment speaker, and has majored in kinesiology and psychology. He's done advocacy work for over 15 years and has dedicated his life to serving and empowering people to be their best self. CJ will be sharing with us the background he's worked with and his own mental trauma. So, welcome, Corey.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
It's awesome. Love your background. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really well. Just got off the phone with a client in Africa, working with this individual. So it's a 7-hour time difference. So I had to make it work and fit in before I got on with you.
That's what we do.
Yeah,
That's what we're here for.
definitely.
All right. So, where do you want to begin? What do you want to share first with the viewers?
Yeah, we can dive right in, with my story, some of the trauma that I've been through in my life and just the process of going through that and how I was able to overcome that to be who I am today. So wherever you want to start, we can jump right in.
All right, let's start with, because I do already know a bit of your background and the viewers don't yet, but I want to know if you majored in kinesiology and psychology because of what you had went through. Was that your purpose?
That's funny. No, so the reason I majored in kinesiology was because I was an athlete in college. And so when I got there, they were like, hey, you're an athlete. Won't you, major in kinesiology? And I'm like, what is that? And so they told me what it was. I had no clue of what it was. And I did that. But once I got in, I said, you know what? This is not something I want to do. I'm not in love with kinesiology. So I began to look into psychology because I love the mind. I love the way the mind works and just everything about the mind. So I said, let me study this because I'm going to be working with people. And also I want to figure out more about myself and some of the things that I've gone through in my life and if I can connect some dots.
Yeah.
And so I jumped into psychology and I fell in love with it. And right now, currently, I'm working on my master's in mental clinical health.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So what are the backgrounds that you work with?
So some of the backgrounds, I work with people in the foster care system. I work with a lot of my work start off with, youth. So I worked in the juvenile justice department. I work with kids in foster care. I work with teen parents. So a lot of my background is in like social work in a sense, right? But I didn't want to per se pursue social work when I first started out. But once I got into it, I'm like, I love this. So just the social work aspect and the mental health aspect all came together. And I'm like, this is what I love doing. Let me go this route. Yeah.
For me personally, it's been troublesome at times when I was, in trauma and working jobs relating to mental health. I wasn't able to hold a job. So for you, did you ever have, times because you have such, trauma like from your childhood where it was difficult for you to, do the job or you felt it was too overwhelming?
You know what? I try to separate it, but there are some times where I found myself being triggered.
Yes.
And it was tough because I wanted to react and I wanted to respond a certain way, but I couldn't, right? Because I had to remain professional. But it was most definitely difficult for me. And I found myself moving around a lot. One, because the integrity in a lot of these places I work for wasn't there. And if the integrity is missing, which I stand highly for, then I can't associate myself. And so I saw a lot of things that not only triggered the people I work with, but it also triggered me. And the way I wanted to respond would have reverted to me going back to childlike behavior as a man, and it wouldn't have looked good. You know what I mean? And so I had to remove myself from those situations.
So I know that's something you talk about, the childlike behavior. So share more of that. Is that like, you not being as mature, like how you could have been at the age you were at? Is that what you mean by that?
So when I talk about childhood trauma, like I have a whole speech on a presentation on childhood trauma, adult consequences. And so what I meant by that was there's a lot of things in my youth that I was never able to properly address or heal from. And I never really developed the skills needed to cope or get through some of these issues. So as I became a man, I started to see a lot of those childlike behaviors come out as a man because it's the residue of what I experienced as a kid. So I find myself shutting down. As a grown man, I found myself shutting down. I found myself retreating from situations, isolating myself, not speaking to people. So all these things where, you a grown man, you would think to have that candid conversation, not to retreat, but to face these issues head on. It was almost kind of like a kid hiding under a table as an adult, and it wasn't attractive. But I didn't understand the magnitude or why I was doing it until I stopped and said, you know what? I've been triggered. I never properly dealt with those issues as a kid. I never introduced the old me to the young me. I never allowed them to meet. And so I sat down one day and I introduced them to one another. And I said, we got to figure this out, because if not, you're going to spend the rest of your life running. You're going to spend the rest of your life hiding and just not building those relationships. So, yeah, it was a lot to overcome. And I'm still working through some of these issues now.
Yeah, it's ongoing for me as well. Even though we've come out on the other side of it, it still lingers, and you can definitely be triggered easily. Yeah. One word I like to use is residue. I really like the fact that you use that word. So let's now share, what is that trauma that we're talking about here, about your past?
Yeah, so a lot of the trauma that I dealt with was most definitely mental and physical trauma. Coming up as a kid, I've witnessed trauma on the degree. Well, it's even tough to talk about. But
No, take your time.
I witnessed so much as a kid that will cause anyone to want to commit suicide. Like, my first thoughts of suicide ideation was at 10 years old. And I can just start off with, all the physical abuse that I witnessed. I remember when I was 10 years old and I was walking up the stairs in my apartment complex, my brother's dad, he was every bit of like 6'3", 6'4", 230 pounds. He took my little brother, he had to be no more than 3, and he was trying to drown him, and just imagine a grown man that big with the force that he has, the strength that he has, with a 3-year-old trying to drown him in the water. And I just stood there frozen, paralyzed, as if my soul left my body, because there was so much I wanted to do to help him, but I couldn't. And I'm just so thankful by the grace of God that when he saw me, he lifted up his head, right? But it did something to me. It took something from me that I couldn't recognize at the time. And just other things, as far as like being locked in my room with the doors tied shut with belts, and my mom was in the other room, screaming for help. And my younger siblings and I, I'm 10, they had to be, 3 and 5 or so. And we're sitting here just crying, and I'm trying to help my mom, but I can't get out of my room because the doors are bolted shut with belts. So when I pull, it slams back. When she pulls, it slams. And so at that point, I'm like, what do I do? So I decided to really, get on the ledge of my second story window, and I was going to jump. And I looked back behind me and I saw my brothers in tears. And when I turned around and I saw their eyes swell up with tears, I said, I cannot allow them to be here alone to deal with this pain and trauma. So it's worth it for me to spare my life so I can help save theirs, right? I've seen my cousin head get cut open with an axe because I had my aunt struck out on dope, she took that axe and threw it, and it split her head wide open. These are the things that I witnessed. I grew up in this type of environment, and all these things done so much to me, but I did not realize it until I became of age to be able to recognize something is wrong, something is off. And I've worked through a lot of those issues, but I never been to counseling. I never, sought out anything because I thought I was fine. It wasn't until people started bringing to my attention, like, something is like, why do you behave to certain things? Like, it can be a small thing, but I grow up, I magnify it like 10 times because I'm triggered, right? And they don't know that I'm triggered, but a lot of the stuff stems from what I've witnessed, being left in a state to raise my daughter on my own. I didn't have any family here. I didn't have my mother. She, moved back to my hometown in Michigan, and to raise my daughter on my own, an empty apartment with no lights, no food, no furniture, all these things really begin to beat me up after a while. And I'm just like, why can't I win? was I put on this earth to just go through hell? Is that my reason for being here? Like every time I turn around, I'm either being abused by the people that tell me they love me.
Yeah.
I'm being mistreated. Somebody's taking advantage of me because I'm loyal. I operate with integrity. I don't cheat the system. But it's like all those things just, it's like I can't keep being this good guy and then I reap negative like all the time. So I begin to lose it. And I've contemplated suicide more times than I should have.
Did you ever attempt it?
I did. I attempted it a few times. I took a bunch of pills at one point, but come to find out they were like baby aspirin.
Wait, baby aspirin.
Yeah. But just the thought of knowing, and then I tried to suffocate myself.
Wow.
At one time, I remember when I was in my room, and I had to be in my 20s at this time. And it was so much going through my mind. I didn't really understand what was happening, but it's like I was hearing things like to, tell me like to do this to myself or do that. And so I remember I took a pillow and I put it over my face and I held it there tight. And my wife actually walked in and caught me. And she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know. I don't feel like I should be here anymore." So I've attempted it a couple times and I failed every attempt, but I did try nonetheless.
So, you said you were hearing voices. Do you find that you were schizophrenic at a point or had some, residue of that?
No, I don't think it was any type of schizophrenia, bipolar, anything like that. What I believe was a lot of the trauma and the abuse that I've been through began to speak real loud. It began to because I knew what was right. I knew what to do, but it seems like all the things that I've heard about myself that was negative, that wasn't true, just began to ring out in my ears. And
PTSD, possibly.
Say again?
PTSD.
Yeah, absolutely, right? It started to ring out in my ears, and I heard that louder than what I knew to be true. And that's why I attempted to suicide multiple times, because I'm like, man, it seemed like I just can't catch a break. And then I was also dealing with not knowing who I was. I've never sat down with anybody to, help point me and guide me in the right direction. I was chasing everybody else's level of success because I saw this working for them. I saw that working for this person. And I just had on a bunch of masks. And the reason I wore the mask because I realized when I wore the mask, people who were inadequate felt more comfortable being around me. Right? Yeah. So I put the mask on to help them feel better about themselves, but on the inside, I was dying. And it just became too much. I became overwhelmed with life. I felt like I didn't have a purpose of living. I felt like there was no reason for me being here besides to be mistreated and manipulated and taken advantage of. And I said, if I'm already living in hell, I might as well just go there, And that's why I tried to take my life. And I didn't care about. People call me selfish, because I talked about, oh, you're selfish or you're seeking attention or there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, who would wish this upon themselves? Who would seek attention this way? It's not that I'm seeking attention. I'm broken. I'm confused. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I want. But I had to do something. So I'm like, if y'all don't take me serious, I know I'm serious. I'm not selfish. I just want the pain to go away.
Yeah.
And at that point, you don't care. I had my daughter, I was married. At that point, you don't care. You're like, you don't understand the level of pain that I'm in. And it's not something that's a physical pain that you can see I'm aching or nothing like that. But the mental abuse and the mental trauma, I think is way more difficult to deal with than any type of physical pain. Because your mind shapes your reality. It's what you think. It's all these pieces to it. And at that point, I said, I'm just going to take my life. And I didn't care who I affected. I didn't care who was hurt by it. I was hurting and I just wanted it to go away.
The thing about this is you had a lot of graphics in your life, like graphics trauma that you saw. A lot of people aren't familiar with that and it's very unknown to them. And another thing is that people are very ignorant and uneducated to know that the difference between seeking attention and, someone needing help. You're
Right.
doing that for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to say that I'm glad it wasn't you who was being drowned.
Yeah.
That's a blessing in itself that, with the axe situation, other situations, you weren't physically getting hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, mental trauma is just as equivalent to physical trauma.
Yeah.
How you're saying it wasn't in your physical body, however, it was in your mental.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when you didn't have the lights on in your house, that you were still pursuing school. So share more about how you were so resilient and really pulled through that time.
Oh, most definitely. So yeah, that time in my life, I was, I believe, 16 or 17 years old. And just to give a little bit of backstory, my mother, we're originally from Pontiac, Michigan. When most young men don't make it out to see past 18 years old. All the abuse that happened in my life started in Pontiac, Michigan, with different men, because my mother didn't understand her value. She didn't know what her purpose was. So she embraced a lot of manipulative, conniving men who did a lot of nasty, dirty things. And I became a victim based on my mother's choices.
Yeah.
And so she moved to Michigan, to Texas, one of her abusers. And, I didn't come immediately, right? I did come immediately. And the abuse became so bad that I ended up going back to Michigan, and I stayed with my aunt. Now, I lived on a golf course. I was like, that was, at that point in my life, I found peace and happiness because I was away from all the toxicity. I lived in a condominium, a 3-story condominium on the golf course. I had everything I wanted. I was driving to school in 8th grade, a Cadillac. Things started to happen for me, right? But my life took a turn because, and I'm going to share this. I was able to spend a lot of time with my girlfriend in Michigan. Like in 8th grade, I would spend that at her house. She would spend that at my house. Now, this is 8th grade, right? People are like, what the hell? And my aunt told me, she said, and she was a police officer at this time. She said, I don't want her over here in my house when I'm not here. And you want your cake and eat it too. So I had her over one day. She called us over there and she kicked me out. Now I had to live with my dad, who abandoned me. And that was a very, very weird situation to be in because I didn't know how to emotionally to connect with my dad. Like I've seen him, I've going around him a few times, but he was never actually present. So I stayed with him for a little bit, got the call from my brothers. They're like, man, we miss you. Like we want you to come back to, we want you to come back to Texas and whatnot. So I ended up leaving my dad because it was just so awkward for me. I'm like, I don't even really know you,
Yeah.
So I went back to Texas and the abuse picked up again. Like, I was fighting my mom's husband. Like, as a young kid, I was fighting him. 16 years old, we get into fights and stuff. And my mom said, I got to get the hell out of here. I can't stay here. But she didn't know that I was going to be a teenage parent. My mother had me at the age of 15. The apple don't fall too far from the tree. I became a teenage parent at the age of 16. But she didn't know that my girlfriend was pregnant for 7 months. She didn't know. I didn't tell her. So she found out she was pregnant when she told me she's going back to Michigan. I told her, I said, look, I got something I got to tell you. She said, that girl bet not be pregnant. I said, she is. And my mom went off. She cussed me out. You're not going to be nothing. I told you I struggle with you. Why are you doing this? And I'm like, I don't know. So she said, you're coming with me. And I said, no, I'm not. I can't come with you. She said, no, you're coming. And I said, I can't come. I said, listen, I've been through hell because my father wasn't there for me. And I refuse to let my daughter, unborn daughter, experience the same trauma hell that I've been through because I'm not going to be there. So I'm staying here. So at 16, I decided, to make the decision to stay in Texas by myself. All my family left. Everybody's in Michigan. I'm here in an empty apartment with no lights. And I wasn't working, none of that. I was an athlete and I was an honor student. And I said, you know what? I don't know how the hell this is going to work out, but something has to work out. I know I'm making the right decision. So I stayed in an apartment. She went to Michigan. Her husband stayed there, but he left and went somewhere else. He moved out the apartment. So I had to get up in the morning and go to school. I didn't have no lights. I had to open the blinds up. And the only lights I had was the light that lit up the hallway in the apartment complex. And I just slept in the dark. And I got up. I said, man, look, you got to come out of this. You can't stay like this. You got to figure it out. I went to school. I continued to play ball. And I still honor student through all this stuff going on. Because I knew I wanted something for my life. I just didn't know what it was. But I said, if I stop, I didn't come this far to only come this far. I didn't go through all that hell to stop right here, right? Like, I got to keep pushing and I got to keep going. So I kept going, and it got tougher. Like, it didn't ease up at all. I was an athlete. Like I said, I got recruited to play football for a D1 university. And I went on the visit, and they were like, we love you. We love your speed. You're going to kill it here. They were like, do you want to come? And I'm like, yeah. This is 17, 18 years old at this point. And they said, we can take you, but we can't take them. And I'm like, well, that's my baby. I don't want to leave my baby. Because, again, I had troubles with abandonment, right? I didn't have any family. So I'm like, I have to do the abandoning, right? I have to leave my daughter. I have to leave my girl behind. And I couldn't make that decision. It was too hard because I'm like, I'm afraid already. I'm here by myself. I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I decided to turn a D1 school down. I went to a D3 school, stopped playing ball, but my life crushed. I was broken. I'm like, football was my ticket out. Although I was an honor student, football was my ticket out. And when they told me they couldn't take me, I was broken again. And the same thoughts of suicide that came at 10 came again at that point.
And how old were you then?
I was at that point, I believe I was 18.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 18 when this happened. And I just like, I can't catch a break. I don't know. Again, what am I here for? What football? I eat, breathe, and slept football. I played since I was a kid. And I thought this was going to be my ticket to get my mother out of dangerous situations. It's going to set my family up to do some amazing things. And that just didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. It's like everything in my life I had to fight for. I had to really get it outside the mud. I didn't have an inheritance. I didn't have a savings account. I didn't have nothing. I just had hard work and just commitment. That's all I had.
Wow. I'm sure most people will be blown away.
It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. So tell me about when you did catch a break. What was that light in your life that came about after moving to Texas?
Yeah, so I would say the whole football debacle happened at 18. And then I said, I got to get a job because I got to support my daughter. I can't just be a deadbeat. And so I was looking, and I'm like, well, what can work with my schedule? So I end up being approached. Actually, my girlfriend actually was a part of this program that were for teen parents, and they didn't have any fathers in the program. And so they said, she's like, hey, babe, do you want to, be a speaker? And I'm like, what? Be a speaker? No, I'm good. Like, I'm cool. And so she was like, no, I think you will love it. So she said, try it out. So I said, all right, I'll do it. So I started working for this program, and my first speaking engagement was in front of the Attorney General of Texas, Greg Abbott.
Wow.
It was this huge conference that I was at. There had to be 200 plus people there. And I had to get on this panel, and they was asking me about my story, and I was giving them my story. As I was telling my story, it just flowed so naturally, right? In regards to being a teenage parent and some of the things that I've been through in my life. And after I finished that conference, I got a standing ovation.
Wow.
People were like, oh my goodness, like, you are a stand-up young man. You stayed in a state by yourself with no family. You decided to take on your responsibility as a young man. You were able to graduate high school. Now you're going into like all these things I heard. It kind of like, for me, all the negative that I've heard, all the abuse, all the trauma, it seemed like it dissipated for a second, right? At that point. And I felt like this sense of overwhelming joy hit me. And after I got off that panel, I sat and had lunch with Greg Abbott. And it's crazy because my daughter is the poster girl all over the state of Texas for child support office, the Attorney General office. Wow. He actually has a picture sitting on Greg Abbott's lap when she was like 1 year old, and they still use it to this day. That was a turning point. That was a turning point for me in my life, but I really didn't tap into the gift. I just said, well, I just did a good job one time, right? Like, this is not something that I'm going to do forever, right? And from that point, I was speaking all across Texas. I was flying out to different states. I was going to different cities, speaking, telling my story, going into all the high schools and the middle schools. And I said, this is it. This is it right here. Like, I found what it is I should be doing. I'm a speaker. Because, Pratima, to be honest, every job I had up until that point, and even after that, I quit. I hated it. I'm like, I would rather struggle doing what I love every single day than do something that I hate and hate every second of every day that I live.
Wow.
And so I began to get into the speaking realm. And I've been speaking now publicly for about 17 years, but I professionally started speaking about 2 years ago because people kept telling me, man, you're a speaker, you're a speaker. And I said, I know some of that is to be true, but I really had to sit down and get intimate with myself and really figure out what my purpose was in life. And every time I spoke, people were captivated. They listened. They were like, man, I've never heard nobody tell a story quite like you. And so people really begin to validate something in my life for once. And I began to take heed to it. And I grabbed onto it and I said, you know what? I'm going to speak for a living. So even now, I'm transitioning out of working in the corporate world or nonprofit world, whatever it is, to pursue this full time because when I hit the ground, my feet just want to speak. That's it. Yeah.
Yo, you're doing it.
Yeah.
You really are. And let them know that you're not another ET. You are CJ. Let
That's
them
right.
know.
Yeah. Let me get the record straight. People say, oh man, you sound like ET. You're ET. Listen, I'm not Eric Thomas. We come from the same spot, but I'm not ET. I just have passion. And the thing is, he got to the platform before I did. But what I will say is this. ET and I share, we are on the same platform, and so, but I'm not him, I'm me.
Corey, what's your perspective on, when they say everything that you went through, it happened for you? Do you believe it also happened to you and for you? Like, what is your perspective on that?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I was just asking myself this question this past week. And I truly believe that things happen to you so you can get what's meant for you.
I like
And
that.
somebody hit my inbox yesterday because they've been watching me. I get all these inboxes all the time. People always right, and they hit my inbox. They were like, "Man, I listened to your testimony because I did a live the other day about the church world and how I was impacted and that trauma came back from being in church." It's a crazy live. You got to check it out if you have it.
Wow.
They were like, "Man, everything that you've been through, even in the church, you had to be crushed to get to where you are now. Because if not, you would have been satisfied and content with where you were. And God has so much more for you." And so I received that and I said, thank you. So I really do believe now that things happen to you so you can get what's meant for you. Because if this never would have happened to me, I wouldn't have a story to tell. I wouldn't be able to transform lives. And I wouldn't be where I am today. So I really do believe that things happen to you so you can get what's meant for you, but that's hard to come to terms with. You know what I mean? You just think life is one big bully and life bullies you until you die, right? But I'm starting to see that that's not true. It's all about how bad do you want it? Can you be resilient? Do you have grit? And can you withstand the storm? And if you can do that, you'll realize I had to be crushed. I had to go through hell to get to I didn't find my purpose on the mountaintop. I found mine in the valley, right? And there's so many people that want to skip the development. There's so many people that want to skip their process. And again, the process tells the story. Success says you earned it. You fought for it. You got it. I found my purpose in the valley. And I'm so thankful that I found it in the valley because it helped shape and define who I am. And now when fear knocks on my door, I can stare at it and just say, you're not ready for me. Like, I really do believe that fear is more afraid of me than I am of it because fear knows that I can conquer it. But if you don't know that you can do that, you will be bullied by fear.
Wow. Your word choice is amazing.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Your word choices are amazing. One thing I want to say is a lot of people who do, are successful in committing suicide. I don't believe they have that grit. You're talking about they don't have that resilience. And, you and I and others, especially in the Powerways program, we have such intense stories that I know that we've all made it through. Just Imani, who I had on yesterday, Imani Capri, she shared how she was going to commit suicide by breaking a glass with a hammer, but the glass never broke. So it's like, if God wants you to really stay and, live out your purpose, I feel that you wouldn't be taken out, hopefully.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, something happened where the sound went crazy again.
That's okay.
All right.
I want to know more about your speaking engagement. So what do you enjoy most? Like, who do you enjoy working with most?
Yeah. So the speaking engagement for me, I've been doing a lot of. Wow, Patricia, that's a crazy question. It's so simple, but right. I've been speaking
Hey.
and working with a lot of people. Like I've touched people internationally in Africa, France, um, people overseas. I'm working with Les Brown now, and
Yes.
so what I can say is this: the speaking engagements for me has really just catapulted me into a new realm. I've spoken the keynotes for women empowerment conferences. I've spoken at big Texas conferences here about child teen pregnancy. I've done so many different speaking engagements, but what I can say is I have never been more fulfilled than I am right now working with Les. The reason I say that is this: it's not even to you know like clout chase or nothing like that. I believe that out of all the people that I've worked with, Les has been the most transformative individual for me. He's transformed me. He's taught me in how to master the art of things. And I've only been doing this with him for just a few weeks, right? But just the way he delivers a message, the way he took my story and told it better than I did. But he had more time than I did, of course. But he took my story and told it better than I did because I didn't have the time for it. But he's teaching me so much. And I just admire who he is, what he stands for, and what he has overcome.
It's incredible.
Yeah, so he's a phenomenal individual. He's a phenomenal man, and I most definitely like working with him. Now I haven't worked with ET, but I know a lot of my friends who's going through Eric Thomas' program. A lot of people love ET. I love ET, but I feel like Les Brown is not a moment person. He's a lifetime person, right? He doesn't just motivate you; he empowers you. He gives you the tools and the skills you need because motivation lasts for a mere moment. But you can't live in that moment for the rest of your life. What happens when that moment fades? Do you have the skills? Do you have the tools necessary to continue on to become your best self? And I believe that's what Les Brown does. And that's why I attach myself to him because that's the same type of style I have. I don't want to motivate you. I want to empower you to tap into yourself, right? Tap into your neocortex and your thalamus. Really understand who you are because I believe that God places your dreams in your mind and your purpose in your soul. He doesn't make it easily accessible to you. That's why you have to become intimate with yourself, know who you are, kill the distractions, hold on to hope. I believe hope is the heartbeat to your dreams and your goals. And if you lose hope, then you lost everything. So that's what I stand on. And I believe working with Les has really taught me a lot in these last few weeks. And I'm so excited. And again, doors are opening like crazy. I just booked a keynote for I booked a keynote for the biggest Black entrepreneur institutions in the world.
Black Lives Matter.
Man, let's get it.
Black Lives Matter. Say that loud and clear. People want to know how they can connect with you in the comments. So share your information.
Yeah, so you can connect with me on Instagram at I am Corey D. Jones. I'm on LinkedIn at Corey D. Jones. Facebook is Corey Jones. You can go to my website, www.coreydjones.com. I haven't done an official launch because I'm still working on some stuff, but you can most definitely find me there. You can text 54244 to speak, and you can see my mobile flyer, my mobile app, see what I got going on. You can find me all over the place.
Wow, a mobile app.
Yeah, I have a mobile app. If you text speak to 54244,
wow.
You can pull up my mobile app, and it just shows you what I got going on, things like that. So I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes. A lot of people, they don't see me speaking on like social media all the time, but I'm working behind the scenes and getting some stuff done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can be a big distraction, spending too much time on social media.
Well, especially Clubhouse. Clubhouse is popping right now. So
yeah.
I get
Tell everyone about your Clubhouse name. It's the same.
Yeah, my Clubhouse name is the same. It's Corey D. Jones. You can find me on Clubhouse. It's only for iPhone users. So if you have an Android, I don't know what to tell you, but most definitely figure out how to get on there.
Yeah, they have to wait until the beta testing is over, but it was really, really incredible having you here, Corey. Thank you so much for being on Try Together. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
No, I just want to, anybody that's listening, listen, go after it. Nobody owes you anything but you. And if you don't bet on yourself, then that's on you. One thing I've learned, and I think it was Bill Gates that said it. He said, if you're born broke, that's not your fault. But if you die broke, it's on you.
Wow, damn.
So, yeah.
No. That's like,
yeah, I was like, boom, mind blown, right? So, no, go after your dreams. Like Les Brown says, the graveyard is one of the richest places in the world because it has robbed so many different people of their dreams, their goals, their aspirations. And there's so many unfulfilled, things there. So fulfill them, go after them. Don't wait for 2021. The numerical year doesn't change who you are. You change who you are. So shift before the year get here. Don't wait on the year.
Wow. You know what? I'm going to clap for you, Corey. You're amazing.
I appreciate it, Prativa. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome. I love this. I love what you're doing. Y'all listen, Prativa is the truth, man. She's phenomenal. I've only known her through the Your Power Voice program, but listen, she's doing amazing things. Rock with her, connect with her if you haven't. She most definitely would change your life in some major ways, for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. See you next time.
All right.